of being an animal or being, some kind of organic being, but yet at the same time it also had the qualities of being a plant. But yet at the same time it also had the qualities of being a plant. But yet at the same time it also had the qualities of being a plant. Lottery and put the ranch up as a prize and sell lottery tickets and see if I could, get rid of the damn thing, just, get as much of my money back as I had, because I had so much in it and, there's no way to deal with it. So, it's just the whole thing has just been kind of a long, strange trip.
So what did the guys from the Men in Black say to you?
Well, I'll tell you the experience. By this point, it seems kind of funny, but I had quite a collection of guns. And so I would have a picnic table that was underneath our hay barn. And, when you own guns, you got to take them out and clean them and oil them and, do all the kind of stuff you need to so they don't blow up in your face when you use them. And so I literally had my collection of guns out on this picnic table, and I was breaking them down and cleaning them and oiling them. And all of a sudden, two SUVs, big General Motors type SUVs, yep, pulled up in front of the ranch. And two guys, quite frankly, they look like the Blues Brothers, got out. And they started walking up the driveway together, and they had the sunglasses on and the black suits and the whole works. And I'd never even heard of Men in Black. I mean, that's why I thought of them as the Blues Brothers, because those guys I was familiar with. And so they got up about halfway up the driveway, and I thought to myself, well, I better go and greet them and see what they want. And I had another friend of mine who was over, who was helping me with the guns. And he looked at me and he goes, John, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm just going to go find out what these clowns want. And I figured they were government people. They had government plates on the vehicle. And I thought, well, I'll just go see. So, I tried to be cool about it. And I walked up the driveway and I said, can I help you, gentlemen? And the guy looks right into my face, like way inside my social space. I mean, he was like 6 inches, 8 inches away from my face. Almost like, chest to chest. And he says, you must stop reporting the information that you were reporting on the cause website. And I said, excuse me, who are you? And I ceased him ID. He wouldn't acknowledge anything that I said. He just repeated that same thing again. And then he and this other guy, who never said a damn thing, turned around and walked away. And it was weird because they didn't really look human. I mean, the color of their skin was like this really kind of, have you ever seen like uncooked chicken under like a fluorescent light, at the grocery store?
Yeah.
That's what it looked like. It had this kind of weird, they almost looked like they were sweating, but they looked greasy, but not sweaty, oily. And they look like corpses almost. And they had the sunglasses on and the suits with the white shirt and the tie, and that was it. They just got back in the SUVs and drove off.
Did that must creep you out a wee bit?
Well, I mean, you see, that's the point. You kind of get to your tolerance level with this thing, Mm-hmm. I mean, after you beat an alien with a baseball bat in the middle of the night, and your wife doesn't even wake up and acknowledge the fact. I mean, you just say to yourself, what's next?
Yeah. You want to have that Signs moment where your wife wakes up and goes, swing away.
Yeah. Well, I thought, and even the next morning I told her, she wakes up in the morning and she looks at me and she goes, did you have a bad dream last night? And I said, no, it wasn't a bad dream. It was the real deal. And she goes, well, you woke me up for some reason. And I said, yeah, it's because I beat an alien over the head with a baseball bat. And she just looked at me and she goes, oh, please, really? And I said, I'm not making this stuff up. I said, how can you make this kind of thing up? And she just looked at me and she goes, well, I told you we shouldn't have bought this place. Every opportunity to tell me that we shouldn't have bought the place, she always rubs that in. And, so I just thought to myself, man, you are totally on your own. This is going to be all about how smart you are, how tolerant you are, how you are able to manage the phenomena and the situation for a good end. And I've been trying to do that ever since.
And
Have you ever? I take it there was never a moment where you thought that these were friendly visitors. There's always been a sinister feeling about the entire situation.
Well, that was only the first time that that I dealt with them, and then the big moment where I actually killed one of them from the first time. I was in my kitchen, and I had a reason to go out to the sunroom, which is about an 800 square foot room off the kitchen, and that's usually where the dogs have their dog crates and they sleep, and my bird is out there, Scarlet, and I happened to leave the kitchen and go through the glass doors into the sunroom, and lo and behold, here it is. It was a gray standing right there outside those two glass doors. And I thought to myself, all right, I need proof. This is going to be the time that we get down and get to it. And I have a samurai sword that I keep in the kitchen right next to a grandfather clock. And so I turned around, grabbed the sword, went back out, and it was still standing there. And I tried, saying to it, several different things like, who are you? What do you want? And, tried to actually have some dialogue with it, but it wasn't saying anything and it wasn't expressing anything to me. And I thought, okay, this is bad. This thing is here to hurt me. It's here to hurt my animals or hurt my wife. This is the same kind of stuff that's been going on. And I ran it through with the samurai sword. And I ran that sword not only right through it, but right into the wall behind it. And all I heard was this hissing sound come out of its mouth. And then there's a phenomenon, and that is that if you don't take the head off, they disappear. And they disappear, they just blink out. But if you manage to cut the head off, then the body and the head remains.
Man,
Well, and this particular, yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
I just want to underline that, Ghost Hunters did an episode at Stardust Ranch, and if you watch it, it's about 44 minutes. They're in a dark room in John's ranch, setting up their video and sound equipment, but shooting, and you hear that hissing sound.
Okay.
So exactly what John just described there. If anyone, go to YouTube. It's, what is it, season 14? I can't remember, but
you can find it just by
Ranch.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you type it in,
you'll actually hear that hissing sound, and it's unearthly. It sounds like somebody stabs a soccer ball with a dagger. Okay, and it's just there in the room. So sorry to interrupt, John. I just wanted to add that.
No, that's a good idea.
Thank you.
So the thing about it is that part of it was rage on my part. Part of it was just I had decided at that point I needed some proof, some physical proof, and this thing, it wouldn't leave. And the other two that showed up at the same time challenged my dogs. It was just a bad situation.
Yeah.
And we had tried, somebody, along the way, somebody had told us that if we put pictures up and if we put up, signs and things on the walls and said, welcome aliens and welcome grays and blah, 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 that, eventually these things would get the idea that, that maybe they weren't welcome, but they were, we weren't there to hurt them. We actually literally did make quite an effort to try to, come to some kind of an arrangement with these things for coexistence. And, they weren't having any of it, and I finally decided, hey, you know what? You guys are trespassers. You're not supposed to be here. And you know what? This is it. We're going to go get down and get dirty.
Was there ever that moment where you thought, "Fuck, I might have just triggered some kind of interstellar war"?
I never thought of it that way. I always just thought of it as what? This is my damn ranch, and you're not going to come and run me out.
All the while they're sitting in the mothership going, well, he's just killed wee Davy. Dee and Sambo, get down there and get him.
It sounds like it's a little bit kind of Gran Torino. It's like, get off my lawn.
Yeah, there you go. Actually, I was just so pissed, and literally by the time this thing was, I could hear it hissing. I was probably a foot away from its face. So I could see the face very clearly. I could see the great big, black eyes, and those eyes are multi-pigmented. I mean, they look like fly eyes up close. I thought, all right, now I got some proof. So that's kind of how the very first one that I killed. Over time, it's turned out to be about 19 of them.
19. So you said that if you don't cut off the head,
It's like an antenna. Yeah, it's like an antenna. If you don't sever the antenna from the main body, they just transition, they disappear.
And you have done that. You have severed
Yes.
the head. Now, you sent some stuff by FedEx to a laboratory, didn't you?
Yeah, well, what happened is that, after this whole thing happened, about 10 minutes later, my wife showed up from work, and
Hey, hi, how was your day?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She goes, so what have you been doing all day? And I'm like, well, look around, and she goes, what's this mess on the floor? And I'm like, well, that's the guts and the body fluid that came out of this thing. And she goes, what are we going to do with it? And I said, I don't know. Let's stick it in the freezer. And she goes, I don't want it in my freezer. And I said, well, what are we going to do with it? And she says, well, you can't just, you're going to bury it? I said, no, it's valuable. I mean, it's proof. And so once again, I got on the internet, and I ended up having a conversation with a gentleman by the name of Robert Collins, Captain Collins. And he's an author. He's written a couple books. And, I recognized him from coast to coast. And I managed to get hold of him and tell him what had happened. And he said, let me put you in touch with somebody. And so I ended up meeting a guy by the name of Dr. Levengood. And I did that over the phone. And I explained to him the situation. And I, sent him some photos. And he said, well, you're going to have to pack this thing up and ship it to me. And I said, well, it's too big to pack up. I mean, I don't know what to do with it. And he says, well, why don't you disassemble it? And I said, well, okay, I haven't dissected a frog since high school. What do I do? And he gave me instructions. And so I went ahead and followed his instructions. And I got a big FedEx box, and I FedExed an alien to Grass Lakes, Michigan, which is where his lab was.
And like, see, just the rule of perception. Like, to you, you're protecting your home, but to the mothership, they're like, this sick bastard's just cut up wee Davy, and he's posting him. It's FedEx Davy. Do you know what I mean? I mean, again, perception is a thing, and if they're more advanced than we are,
A bag of sugar.
do you know what I mean? And maybe that's why they didn't leave you alone. I mean, was it the first one that you killed? Maybe that did start. Maybe at first they just thought, when they started stroking your arm, they thought that it was still a whorehouse, right? And then you end up battering him with a bat. And he went back and he was sitting at the bar and he's like, you know what? I'm going to go down and get that fucker hit me with a bat. So he's waiting at your kitchen. And then you go at him with a sword. And his buddies are like, that's what you order.
This is a cartoon waiting to happen.
Do you know what I mean? It would be really interesting, to hear the Alien cast, where the guy is like, so you actually went down to, there's a podcast going on in space. You actually went down to, and this guy, this alien attacked you at his door. It's like, yeah, I was just trying to be friendly. And then he attacked me with a bat.
Some kind of alien extraterrestrial Jerry Springer show.
Yeah, where people don't believe him that John Edmonds exists. How cool would that be, right?
Back on track.
You've got to make light scenarios of
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I agree 100%.
Did that FedEx pack make it to Michigan?
Yes, it did. He was amazed because, Dr. Levengood had been the guy who was very involved with cattle mutilations. That was his specialty. And so, all of a sudden he had a ET to work with. And, he'd also asked me for a lot of samples from, as far as like grass and various different soil samples and all sorts of things. And so, it wasn't one package that I sent him. I sent him, quite a few different things.
Mm-hmm. And again, this is just from what I remember. I heard you on a previous another podcast a while ago, and I think you said that did Dr. Levengood did he die suddenly?
Yes, yes.
And then his
it was.
wife as well. Is that right?
Yep, that's very true. About a year, I mean, there was a good year involved here where he and I were communicating off and on. And, the idea was is that he went ahead and he sent out the samples to various different universities. I mean, big name universities. And of course, he didn't tell them what it was. He just sent it out as an unknown substance and he asked for them to identify it. And it kept coming back with the same information, and that was that they could not identify what it was, and that it was, something that was capable of having, the qualities of being an animal or being, some kind of organic being, but yet at the same time it also had the qualities of being a plant. And so, the DNA it didn't add up, and so they were fascinated. Everybody was fascinated. And, we were going to go ahead and hold a press conference and have, the big world, wide world, press conference and expose the whole thing and put it out there. Qualities of being an animal or being, some kind of organic being, but yet at the same time, it also had the qualities of being a plant. But yet at the same time, it also had the qualities of being a plant. But yet at the same time, it also had the qualities of being a plant. But yet at the same time, it also had the qualities of being a plant. And so, the DNA it didn't add up. And
again, this is just from what I remember.
He just sent it out as an unknown substance and he asked for them to identify it. And it kept coming back with the same information, and that was that they could not identify what it was. And that it was, something that was capable of having, the qualities of being an animal or being, some kind of organic being, but yet at the same time, it also had the qualities of being a plant. And so, the DNA it didn't add up, identify what it was. And that it was, something that was capable of having, the qualities of being an animal or being, some kind of organic being, but yet at the same time, it also had the qualities of being a plant. And so, the DNA it didn't add up. And so they were fascinated. Everybody was fascinated. And, we were going to go ahead and hold a press conference and have, the big world, wide world, press conference and expose the whole thing and put it out there because at one point, a letter came back saying you have proof positive that ET or extraterrestrials are visiting Earth, and that these samples are in no way, shape, or form Earthbound.
So okay, so that was, it was confirmed at that point that this is extraterrestrial. What was the word?
Origin.
Material.
Yeah.
So.
And then shortly after that, they found him dead in his lab, and then the next day they found his wife dead in the lab.
What did they reckon? What was the cause of death?
I don't remember, to tell you the truth. I think it was that it was natural causes or something absurd like that.
That was him. The wife was an accidental death, like something really. I can't remember exactly. Like she slipped on a banana peel or something. By the way, this was the exact point I left the first writing of the book in 2012 because this is right around. This is right around the time Levengood and his wife died, and I said, "Nice knowing you, John. I'm going to stop this book now." So I was waiting for my opportunity to explain that. Thank you.
But I can imagine for you it would have been like, well, wait a minute, that's too close.
Yeah.
But yet at the same time, it also had the qualities of being a plant. But yet at the same time, it also had the qualities of being a plant. But yet at the same time, it also had the qualities of being a plant.